Hey friends. Um, what is this? Day 3 of my having COVID. Um, Feeling way better. I continue to improve. I continue to rest. And actually, in a weird way, one of the signs that I feel like I'm getting better is that I'm able to rest more peacefully. Like I'm not as agitated when I rest, and it's like both psychologically and physically. It's like I just settle down faster, and I'm convinced that this is something I've needed, COVID or not. That my body is just catching up on rest that it hasn't had a chance to get for a long time. So I'm kind of just leaning into that for now. I'm letting myself do it. I've got, these 5 days prescribed absence when I am quarantining. So it's like, I'll take it. I'll just use it to get myself feeling better. And it's, like I said yesterday, I sort of had a day where that set of realizations kind of just continued to build. I had a great conversation today with some of you have met Julia, my sister-in-law. She came on one of my posts several months ago over the summer. She just called me to say hi and had heard that I was under the weather, and we had this great conversation where she mentioned that all of the people she knows who've had COVID have really experienced a transformative experience around realizing what's important in their life. And she talked about how in Chinese medicine, which she's an acupuncturist, in Chinese medicine, the lungs are all about grief. They're the organ in which grief is kind of resides. And so by connecting with the lungs, we connect with grief. And there was this beautiful connection where she talked about how grief is how we realize what's important. Grief is how we realize the sort of temporary nature of everything. And when we realize that, everything comes into focus as far as like what's important and what's not. Things that when it's really only when we're deluding ourselves that everything is somehow infinite, or that things are undefined in terms of their time or their benefit or whatever. There's this kind of weird way in which I call it the promise of perfection. It's like our mind creates either outcomes or scenarios or it's fantasies of what a certain line of behavior is going to bring us, or something, and it's basically getting attached to a fantasy. But grief is that side of us that brings us back to, well, this is all ending. What do I really care about? When I take that seriously for a moment, what do I really care about? And there's this beautiful way in which she, her saying that also, it then reminded me of the insights or the advice that Madeline at one point gave me about reflecting on something sad before I practice, reflecting on something sad before I meditate, kind of just connecting with grief intentionally, not to make myself feel bad, obviously, but to open that space of vulnerability and really feel what's important. And I think, it's no surprise. It was a little bit sort of almost oddly perfectly aligned that's so much what happened for me naturally without being conscious of that connection. That's so much what happened to me as I started having this experience. I started immediately connecting with aspects of my life where I was like, oh, this feels important. Like where has my attention been? What have you been doing? Attention, who have you been hanging out with? my attention. It's really funny. It's like our attention is like a teenager, and you're like, what? I don't know if I like your friends. I don't know if that's a creative metaphor, but I definitely have this sense that I'm reconnecting with what really matters deeply, and that's gonna last. You know, I had the experience this morning before I spoke to Julia or anybody. I had this. I was walking around the house, and I'm noticing stuff in the house, and I'm looking around the room. And I'm noticing that there's a set of speakers built into the wall in the kitchen. I'm noticing that the front of the sink is kind of dirty. I'm noticing. It's like my eyes were seeing details in my environment, details that I don't normally see, because I just see, you know, it's kind of that thing of like, once we've mapped a space for ourselves, we stop really seeing it. Our perceptions become representations of our expectations. So we're not really looking that carefully. Unless something obvious is different, we don't really see it that much, that clearly. But somehow today, it's like I was seeing the place anew. I was walking into the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, and kind of see it. The closet in the bedroom. It was like my perception had become deeply enhanced. And I was like, whoa, you know, it's almost a little bit like being on drugs. It's like an altered state of, whoa, what am I seeing here? And I had it struck me that, oh, wow, I'm actually undergoing a transformation. I'm really undergoing a shift in consciousness here. This isn't just an illness that's taking me out for a day or two, a couple days, 5 days. It's actually a transformation of some kind. And that brought another, you know, wave of gratitude for it, even as I'm like literally fielding texts all day and phone calls all day on how to keep the show on the rails. Oh my God, the company is such a group of champions. They are doing fine. They've got it. They're ready to open. They're doing another preview tonight, and they have opening tomorrow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm so proud of them. And I'm so grateful that I haven't, you know, caused a greater disturbance than I have, you know, that I haven't like made it impossible. Thank God Peter's here. And, you know, and it's also that thing of like, you know, a friend of mine was saying, this creates a beautiful situation where the composer gets to play the opening of his own show. And while I would never in a million years have wished for that, and I know he wouldn't either, there is this odd elegance to this event. There is an odd kind of, seen from a larger scale, there is an odd perfection to it. You know, that he would be here and available, and that it would work, that this would be possible. It's just all working out the way it needs to, I think. That's all I can feel about it. I do feel myself wanting to lean into the rest and the restoration. I definitely feel really exhausted. And I think it's a cumulative thing, and I'm almost grateful. I am grateful. But I'm almost, you know, I obviously wouldn't have chosen this, but it feels somehow right. It feels somehow right that I'm getting this window of insight, window of opportunity for insight at this time. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. But I had the another thing that came through today, which I probably won't go into fully on this post because it was a separate issue that would take a while to unpack, but was this idea of various perspectives in our culture, and how we think about our elders, particularly in American society. We have a kind of culture of inclusion, a burgeoning culture of inclusion. Well, we have a culture of exclusion, and we have a new wave of cultural emphasis on inclusion. And that just gets dicey when we start working with people who are of a completely different generation and have therefore different worldviews, and we have this in a way, we have a clash of worldviews, and both Julia and I were kind of saying doesn't need to be a clash. If it's truly inclusion, then it could accommodate those changes in the worldviews. But anyway, like I said, I don't know if that's something for me to unpack right now. It's a little heady for where I'm at. But yeah, thank you all for your lovely messages over the last couple of days, and for your beautiful, beautiful attention and your gifts. They mean the world to me. I'm doing pretty well. I'm coming through this. I feel better every day. I suspect tomorrow I'll feel even better, because today I was out walking around. It's like over the course of the day I get increasingly tired. That's what I've noticed. My energy level, I think in the morning I'm like, I'm done. Look at me. I'm free of COVID. Let me test. I'll test negative. But then sometime in the afternoon my body starts to flag, and I go, oh, maybe I'm not quite done. I'm not highly symptomatic. I'm hardly coughing at all anymore. But I just feel like I can lift weights just by lifting my arms. I can go to the gym just by moving my body. So I think I still got a little more resting to do. But I love you folks. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for being with me through this. And I'll see you on the other side. I'll see you tomorrow.